Hey, what is up? Welcome to the Overcommitted Podcast, where we talk about our code commits, our personal commitments, stuff in between, and just generally have a good time. I'm your host, Jonathan Tamsit. I am joined by...
I'm Brittany.
And I'm Erika.
We are software engineers. We initially met as new hires at GitHub, and we found a common interest in continuous learning, building interesting projects, and just being a human in the tech world. We continue to meet to talk about stuff we've experienced and discuss our lives in this crazy world called the tech world. Whether you're pushing code or taking on new challenges, we're happy you're listening. And today we're going to talk about a pretty trendy topic, AI agents. So I think this is something that we're all kind of exploring and I think is kind of new to the industry. And yeah, we just want to kind of, I guess, learn. And I think this will maybe be like a learn in public type conversation. We'll kind of see where this goes. So I guess to kind of start us off, why are AI agents exciting to you? Why are they interesting to you? I mean, I think there's like, kind of like the obvious reason, I think, for me is like, we have these tools, these large language models, and they're capable of sort of information retrieval and generating text and reasoning. And I think that there's a bunch of jobs that humans do that are boring and that humans don't want to do. And I think it's just interesting to see, how can you take these sort of like kind of building blocks of AI tooling to develop sort of these, agents or whatever, these entities that kind of are able to kind of perform these tasks. And I think like, kind of in my dream, like a lot of these tasks, like it's like human out of loop, like humans aren't involved at all. But yeah, I guess, yeah, like, I don't know. Yeah. Why are AI agents interesting to you? Like when you guys hear the word AI agent, what about that excites you? I'm just curious. Kind of a vague question, but
I can go first. So for full disclosure, the extent of my experience with AI agents is really using tools that are already pre-built for this, like the GitHub Copilot coding agent. That one was really nice to use because I can just like start using it with a GitHub issue, and that was not outside of my comfort zone in terms of things that I was already doing. But I am very interested in learning how to build my own agent, and I think I find it really interesting because I think it's a new way to think about solving problems. Previously it's about like, oh, you're going to build this deterministic route of like this to the API to this to like gather stuff, but then you're going to have to do a lot of thinking about the data that you get back and decide what to do with it. And the idea is with an AI agent, it can theoretically offload some of that thinking. So thinking about this episode and preparing for it, I was thinking about, okay, what is a practical problem that I could try to solve with an agent? And I came up with a whole bunch of them. And so now I'm really excited to learn how to build them and learn what to do with them so that I can actually partake in this trend.
The thing that interests me the most is the breakdown of the problem. I've similarly only used GitHub Copilot agent mode, but I find it really interesting how it breaks down the problem, which is a critical part of building an agent, is understanding how to direct the model or the agent to like take sequential actions and use like outside resources. So it's second brain to the like fullest degree, where you have to like you have to know how you would solve the problem. And sometimes it's not always the same, like the way the agent does it and the way that I would do it. So I think it's an interesting way of thinking, of putting on my computer hat and thinking how I would think about something as a computer. And it's kind of a truism for all software engineering, but it's a systemized version of it versus individual problems. And like thinking of how you achieve an end goal versus solve like one specific problem.
yeah, I think, so I kind of like proposed the topic of talking about agents today. I mean, I think we're all interested in it, but one of the things that was kind of inspiring to me was there's this venture capitalist. Her name is Sarah Guo. She started a VC firm called Conviction. And she has a list of startups that are like potential ideas. And she also gave a talk, and I'll link the list of startups and talk in the show notes. But I think, right, like, I think one thing she said was, a few things. One is like, I think that like we have to fundamentally rethink the user experience with agents, right? So I think like software, we have tables and infinite scrolls, and there are these like primitives that exist currently with like modern software, and you have the paginated table or the infinite scroll or whatever, and users are clicking buttons and reading things. You have your 10 blue links or whatever with Google, and right, like I think with agents, I think that like, and I don't know what the best interface is, but I think there's a different interface that exists. So like, for example, like I was listening to a podcast where the guys who created Cursor were talking, and they were saying that, you know, one of their, and if you've used Cursor, this actually works really well. They have this feature where when you're done typing, it will predict where you would want to add code next and take you there. So it has and this is like a small UX thing. If you're like typing in a file, let's say you like update a variable name, it'll say, okay, like now do you want to go to this file and update the variable name? And it's like this like small UX thing. And they were talking about like, they have like a model that basically outputs, it predicts where you're going to go next. And so I think there's like a different way of us interacting with technology. I mean, another example is like instead of going on and booking a flight, maybe there'll be an agent where you just describe the kind of constraints you have, and it'll go off and do it, right? And so I think like, yeah, so Sarah Guo talked about this. The other thing she talked about was like, you know like we've talked about previously, this like dream of artificial general intelligence. And I think like, you know in the short term, maybe before AGI is reached, or if it's ever reached, right, there's like this incredible opportunity for people who are like domain experts in something to build agents that like perfectly solve a problem for a certain type of person. So you could think of like support customer, support staff, that's an example. But like, I don't know, if you're like an expert in construction or whatever, like I think there's like a ton of startups that are just like, we're building the cursor for X, we're building the cursor for construction, we're building the cursor for health, for skilled nursing facilities, etc. And I've like seen a lot of startups that are being funded for this. So I think like, agents are like a fundamentally new paradigm for writing software and a new interface. And I think that's like interesting to explore. It's kind of the TLDR by ramble. So any thoughts, or sure, I guess we can, if not, we can kind of I guess talk about, yeah, maybe we can like just define what we mean by an agent, and maybe if there's anything that kind of sparks your interest there. So I guess kind of setting some context. So agent is like, yeah, like in general, an agent is it's kind of like a term that is, I think, existed in artificial intelligence for a while, but in our context, it's like there's kind of three things an agent does. Perceives some inputs. An agent can either receive text or it can make an API call or whatever. Uses that to plan its next action. It acts. So that action could be, calling a tool, or you know, um, firing off, doing something, or like responding to a user or something, and then you kind of have this like chain of like perception, deciding what to do, acting, and then kind of like starting over and over again. Um, there's talked about previously, agents often have the ability to use tools. And I think agent is kind of an overloaded term. Like the quote unquote agents that I've kind of experimented with have been just like basically continuously calling, the OpenAI API. So like, I built an agent, or I built like a Python script to get my emails and like help me decide, how to like respond, help sort my emails in terms of, priority items. I also set myself like to do items via my email. So I wanted the LLM to like grab my to do items, kind of sort them between personal and work, and list them. And they're sort of like unstructured. So I guess, you know, um, I think one question for you guys is like, when you think about an agent, what yeah, like what do you guys think about like thinking about that definition? What to you is an agent? And I know there's like a lot of kind of definitions here, but I'm just curious like what your understanding or opinions or whatever.
My thoughts are that it's just like a programming loop, like, you
Yeah.
know, like you would have for any other thing that has previously existed. But, it involves AI at some point or LLMs at some point in the process where, one of the steps that it's doing involves that. And I think the important thing is that those loops have existed. Being able to generate your own loop that will go through and do a task for you has existed for a very long time. And this is just applying that same concept to using LLM tools as part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's like a bunch of I think Anthropic has and I can share another I came across a while ago like yeah, I mean I think right, yeah, like fundamental to like core pieces of an agent or like the model underlying models. One thing we can talk about is, these like there's kind of like different layers in which these models you can inject domain knowledge. So like there's this thing called retrieval augmented generation. So you could kind of give these models a corpus of text to kind of read and look up. There's these things, and they rely on these things called embeddings, which we can talk about. And then models also have access to tools. And then another kind of big thing that a lot of the sort of agent frameworks have are like some notion of guardrails. So like that they have like API primitives for like limiting the actions, and agent can take. Besides the GitHub coding agent, have you guys used an agent that you've like enjoyed or like have seen an agent that you've like gotten a lot of value? Yeah. Okay.
No, I've heard some people talk about their agents and having multi-agent workflows, like having like a test creation agent and like a coding agent and maybe like 4 or 5 different agents running in separate terminals.
Mhm.
So that it sounds fun. I haven't gotten to that point yet.
Yeah. Yeah, it is I feel like we're kind of at the beginning and there isn't, yeah, right now like kind of LLM based tools are super useful. But yeah, I haven't found a ton of use outside of like coding. I think like these tools are just kind of still being built out.
Can we like take a use case? I have an idea for a use case. Can we just like
Okay.
walk through how you would take that and like build an agent?
Yes, yeah. Let's do that. That sounds great.
Okay. So I have this idea to build an agent. I want this to help me. Right now, I write a newsletter where I go through and read a bunch of blog posts written by software developers and sort of categorize them around the Balanced Engineer newsletter every week. Right now, I'm really dependent upon RSS feeds and just getting whatever information is pushed to me through those feeds. I would
Mhm.
love to build an agent, though, that could take that list of RSS feeds and like one, go add to that list by finding more RSS feeds from other developers that are doing
Mm,
something similar. And two, would like search the entirety of an RSS feed and find which articles are actually the most applicable to look at or most, fit those categories
mm,
to look at and like what are the best ones to look at. Because a lot of the things that people have written, like their most recent thing isn't necessarily the best thing they've written.
mhm,
So I'd like to look through the body of work
mm,
within somebody's blog and say like, all right, how about you read X, Y, and Z post because they seem like the best ones to look at. So how
mhm.
would I build
Yeah,
that? Please tell me.
that
I think the first step is like defining your categories and your metrics for success. Where I'm curious how you come up with the topics that you want to fit these posts or blogs or whatever into, and then how you determine what the best fit is currently.
Yeah. So I actually have a list of different topics that have, some examples to go along with them. So, for example, one of them is technical excellence, which looks at things like engineering blogs or
mhm,
ADRs or case studies and things that are about like actually building skills. And then I have another topic that would be communication and collaboration, where it's more about, like management and leadership and team dynamics and things like
mhm,
that. And so I have this list of topics already. So I feel like I have that spot taken care of. And I also
mhm,
have an RSS link, a list of RSS feeds that I currently look at. I could always add to it. And shout
mhm,
out to anybody who writes things on the internet. Please send me your RSS feed and I will include it in my
mhm.
list. but it's mostly a list that I've gathered over time and I'm currently subscribed to. But with that comes this very standardized way to look through this list of blog posts through RSS, which should make this theoretically pretty easy because that's already like programmatically driven. And there's a way that it's set up through XML that it should be easy to look through. And look through all of the content in each blog post and find like which ones are the most relevant to each of those categories.
Yeah. It's interesting. So like, right. So you have some corpus of articles, right? So you have, and then like, I think there's kind of a few problems here. One is you kind of want to cluster articles based on these topics. And I think that's like very doable. I talked about this thing called like an embedding. If you guys, so an embedding model is basically a neural network model that what it basically does is you can think of it plotting text in some like hyperdimensional space. You can think of like 3D space, and then so there's 3D space and there's a bunch of points that correspond to like text, and you can embed tokens. You can also embed like full documents. And what an embedding model does is you can train it so that points that are close to one another are similar to one another. So like if you have, like the word like king and queen will be similar to one another. And then there's also there's basically like vector math you can do so each one of these points you can think of as like a vector from like the origin to the point. And then you could do like basic vector math. So you can take like king minus female or minus male equals queen. So there's kind of like vector math you could do for sort of mapping concept semantics from like one concept to another. And so like, yeah, embeddings are used for you can create an embeddings model for, a bunch of documents, and then you can, basically use vector distance to cluster them. So like, but this is all to say, I think clustering documents on like is like doable. I do think, you mentioned like you want to find the highest quality articles. And I question. I don't know how you would do. Yeah, how do you rank? Is it like how much the article is cited by other articles? Is it its relevance to?
Yeah, I'd say probably like the relevance to the topic. I'd probably have to build up like a list of keywords or something like that, sort of like a search engine, I suppose, to like try to rank them together.
Yeah.
To see which one would be the most accurate. But I
mean,
mean, I don't care about it being like totally accurate. I just want it to help me like parse through these and be like, yeah, this one looks like it's related to that. So
this seems like one of those self-training opportunities where you could have it iteratively improve and not necessarily like explicitly define what best is at the beginning, but give it some set of instructions. And then as it gives you back input, it will learn what you consider the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what tools? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. No, I was literally about to ask the same question you were about to ask, Brittany.
Yeah. Yeah. What tools exist to do this? Is there, I mean, where do you even start with something like this?
Yeah. Well, I know. So there are like embeddings, document embedding APIs that you can use where you basically upload the documents and then you can assign labels to the documents and it'll essentially create the embedding space. So that's kind of like it's like a supervised training algorithm. So you have documents, you have labels. So when you upload a new document, it'll sort of take that document and give it the kind of label and embedding space. The second thing, is like determining I mean, so I think there are like relevance. I mean, I wonder if you could I mean, in terms of finding the best article, like maybe this is just like an embeddings problem where you like categorize any article, but you said you want to find the best articles, but you said most relevant. So maybe it still is an embeddings problem where you find essentially the most relevant article, which I think like I would push back on whether that's the best way to do that. Like, that maybe will reduce the likelihood that you'll come across like really like articles with like really novel ideas.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I don't really necessarily care that it's the best ones. I just want to make sure that like I look through this list of articles and like consider the entire body of something that somebody wrote within their blog instead of just whatever is the newest thing that comes out.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's the best doesn't necessarily matter, but maybe just categorize it into the list of categories that I already have. So you're saying that I would need to go through and basically take a bunch of those things and categorize them myself and then feed it into a model to like take that data and get more things and try to categorize it the same way? Is that sort of the way that it works?
Yeah, I mean, and caveat, I don't know what I'm talking about. This is just like if you're asking me without Googling, that would be my answer. I would
Okay.
definitely definitely like that seems reasonable. Yeah, like maybe some like embeddings pipeline.
It'd be interesting to see what behavior you get with maybe 2 or 3 different approaches or goals in mind. I can think of you've mentioned wanting a diverse set of opinions and viewpoints to get a holistic sense of a topic. We've talked about like best articles, like however you view that as like, well written or readable or like interesting and or like I think the third thing we talked about was like most cited. Yeah. So I'd be kind of curious to see what output you get with even two different goals in mind, but like comparing comparing training goals with
Mhm.
what comes out of it.
Yeah, there is this like so all these models use like this concept of like RLHF, if you've heard of it, like the reinforcement learning through human feedback, and it's basically right like it's when ChatGPT shows you two responses and then asks you like which one's better, right? So the model is generating output and then you're telling it which one's better, so that's kind of its like training loss. It knows, okay, like I want to generate answers that are more similar to this. So you could do like an RLHF thing where like, I mean, this is a lot of work, but like where you essentially begin to rank, you know, articles that you really like, or maybe you rank all articles by like how much you really like, how high quality they are, and maybe there is some sort of learnable, sort of implicit structure to like what makes a good article versus a bad article. But yeah. But ranking. Yeah, I feel like ranking articles. I mean, it's funny because like this is kind of just how Google works, right? Like
Yeah,
Google,
this.
yeah, Google just like ranks articles and returns them for relevancy. And, I think there's a bunch of ways relevancy can be scored. This is kind of like the fundamental problem, like information retrieval, like given a query and a corpus of documents, return the top K documents that are most relevant to, yeah. In which case Google already exists. I'm not sure an agent is required.
No, that's fair. But there's
Yeah.
also a lot of downsides, I think, to search engine optimization because a lot of that is
Yeah.
really built on like the number of keywords that are present in an article. And just because an article is stuffed with a bunch of keywords doesn't necessarily mean it's like good.
No, totally.
It's the same issue where, if you're looking at articles that are pushed to you through something like LinkedIn or some other social platform, you're going to see whatever the most popular one is, not necessarily the one that's like the most relevant to what you're interested in.
Yeah.
And a lot of times those algorithms end up pushing things that are like the most, the spiciest or the ones that get the most, negative feedback or whatever. And that's also not a thing that I really care about personally. I just want to learn from other people and what their experiences are.
Yeah, it's definitely very appealing taking back the control of the algorithm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I want. I just want my own algorithm.
Yeah. No, that is actually like an interesting idea. Like we all like, I mean, at Google, I think customizes per user, but like I think to an extent, like what would a like an information retrieval system that you could like truly customize and like really well define, really clearly define, like relevancy. You mean maybe that's our next startup idea. Customize, truly customizable search engines. Although I think most people just want the same information. Or
It's
don't
true.
care. Yeah. Okay, so I don't know if we answered your question, but we did spend a couple minutes talking about cool stuff.
Yeah. No, I think this is really interesting to think about. This is something that I haven't really spent much time thinking about. Like, okay, like what does that actually mean to build that? And it's a different set of engineering problems that I'm not super used to. But it still seems like the same fundamental building blocks of any other engineering problem.
Yeah.
I think you've given me an idea for an agent too. It's not fully fleshed out, but something that works with my Obsidian space to like improve my second brain, like either like suggesting edits for notes based on like a GitHub MCP, a publicly available knowledge on the internet. Like I don't know, letting me know when things are like outdated or inaccurate or something like that, and suggesting updates for my notes
Mm,
could be
yeah.
helpful.
I
I
think there are
I
some. Oh, okay.
I don't know. Brittany, go.
I was gonna say, I think that there are some plugins you can use that have some LLM capabilities built in that you can like
Yeah.
feed your entire set of notes to it.
I
But
use one.
oh, okay. What is it?
Yeah. It is called, if I can't find it in the next 4 seconds, then I'm just going to tell you. It's called Obsidian Copilot.
Yeah, I've been wary of using any plugins because it's like proprietary data,
Yeah.
but I do have my Obsidian in a private like GitHub owned repo, so I can play around with it there.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's smart.
That's fair. Yeah, this is probably um in violation of some corporate policy to use. But
I think some of them are built on like a local model though, too, which would be, I mean, as long as it's not sending data out to, some server for another company somewhere.
yeah, you could run like your own llama server and use that as a backend with this, I think.
I do wonder if this is a little bit off that track, but I wonder if like the trend to having a bunch of digital notes or like the permanent knowledge management thing is going to disappear with like the move towards like digital minimalism and like not using as much like, data space as you really,
Hmm.
need to use out there in the world.
Do you guys feel do you feel pulled? Because I don't feel like, is that like an environmental thing where people are like, I don't want to, because it's like, I don't know, like a megabyte of data, a megabyte of storage is like fit in like my pinky. I don't know. I feel like my energy consumption is probably worse than for the environment than my
That's true. I just read
yeah.
something on Blue Sky yesterday about how some like person in like the UK was like, oh, you need to go delete all your old emails to free up data center space or something
Yeah.
because it's using too much water to cool these data centers or whatever. And like,
Mm,
I'm curious if that's going to be a problem
yeah.
one day. It probably isn't. Like, if you're going to compare what is going to make the difference, I don't think that my personal old emails are going to make a difference compared to like the massive amount of energy used for
Yeah. But I don't
most
know.
corporations.
That is there's like a subreddit called I think it's called like They Did the Math or Do the Math, and it's where people make comments like that and then someone actually does the math. I actually am curious what the math is. Like, everyone's emails who are older than 2 years, how many terabytes of storage is that? And then like how much carbon had to be emitted into the atmosphere to whatever produce that. I think this is also a subject, but I feel like this is we're having a wacky podcast episode. I like it. This is another subject change, but it's kind of related to agents. But I actually think one thing that's totally broken is looking for a job, and it's broken for a number of ways. I think the way we interview candidates is totally dumb. I also think that
You're experiencing this because you're going through it right now.
yeah, yeah. And not to yeah. But I mean, I just think, right, like, asking like a simple algorithm challenge and then spending a few hours with a candidate asking them standard business questions, I just feel like isn't a good predictor of whether they will be successful in that role. And I think that there's also kind of a related problem of like, I really do believe this, of like a human capitalization problem. So I think there's a lot of really smart, capable people that are just not, their skills and their intellect are not being deployed on like problems that really matter. And I think like some type of like omnipotent job, like I'm like in the limit, if there existed some type of like omnipotent job search engine that would like match you with a job that you would like and be successful on, and would be like a good use of your skills for society, would be like an incredibly useful tool. It's sort of this like social organization tool. And I wish it existed. And but I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on that? There's also like some like maybe downsides to like having a centralized thing for that. But
I think you
yeah.
just invented communism.
Yeah, did I just
I was
make
gonna say,
copy?
I fall on the complete opposite end of your perspective, where I feel like the broken part of hiring is not necessarily like the automated part. Like it's like the people skills. Like, I feel like there for software engineering jobs, there's definitely like the technical aspect of like,
Mhm.
do you have these skills? Do you know how to do this? And like there are ways to test for that, but I feel like the most important predictor is your like culture fit and like your personality.
Hmm.
Um, and that's 100% not something that can be automated. Like I think of this in like the answer that I would want to ask, like the answer that I would want to find as an interviewer is like, is this person resilient? Will this person grow in this role and like, continue to provide value?
Hmm.
And like that's not in any way something that can be answered by a machine because people change and people grow and like you're looking for those like raw human qualities and
Hmm.
like I said, like the culture fit and the skills fit for the job that you're looking for right now, but you're also looking for the potential of the future. And yeah, like I feel like automating that to any degree is sort of how do I say this, like looking at the from my perspective, like looking
Hmm.
at the sort of like problem, like that's not the from my perspective it's looking at the wrong problem.
Yeah.
I think also that would be expecting companies to like be able to accurately define what the job is and like what their culture is. Like, I don't know if I'm sure you've read some job descriptions lately. A lot of them are very grandiose compared to like what the
Yeah.
actual work is.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that also is like the other side of that. I think it's expecting people to know exactly what a job is hard,
Hmm.
actually.
Well, no, I totally agree with everything you said. And yeah, employers don't know what they want. I think like slope matters than y-intercept, basically. I do think, there's also, humans are really biased and there's an incredible amount of bias. There's just bias in the interview process. Um, you know, hurts candidates depending on what the bias is.
Yeah,
So
I feel like I'm sorry I'm cutting you off, but
yeah, go ahead.
I think where you might be going is like that's maybe the problem that we want to solve is like pointing out biased decision making.
I don't think it's the problem, but it is a problem. And like maybe it's not the most important problem, but it is a problem, I think, that's like frustrating to experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think when I think back, when I think back to my experience too, I think that humans are also biased towards like assimilating to whatever environment that they're in too. Like, I don't,
Hmm.
most people I've worked with are people that I've really loved working with. I think
Hmm.
you hear that from everybody. Like when they leave a company, they're like, oh, it was the people that really made this happen. So like maybe there's not as much risk as of hiring, the wrong hire
Hmm.
as people think there is. It seems like there's a
Hmm.
lot of fear of saying like, "Oh, what if I hire the wrong person?" But like usually most people turn out fine.
Well, I've heard the opposite. I've literally heard people say, we've hired too many B players, So, I think yeah. I mean, to your point, Brittany, it's like, what even is a good person at a company? Who knows? There's not one definition. Companies don't even know what they want. But what should a company even be doing? If a company's mission is stupid, then it doesn't matter if you hire the best people. They're just going to be working on a stupid thing. I mean, there's just like infinite, infinite turtles all the way down here. But
That's true though. Like I do find myself reaching like even as an employed person for like some kind of answer bank or like way to understand how leadership and like management is looking at success.
mhm,
And like I feel like if we're talking about agents that we would want in the world, like that is something that I would personally find helpful, something I could go
mhm,
to and be like, this is my like we would do like quarterly self evaluations or whatever, right? Like
mhm,
stick that into an agent and be like, hey, like, is this aligning with what my company is valuing? Like, what are some of your
mhm,
pointers? Because so
yeah,
much of our feedback comes filtered.
mhm,
And like, I don't know, maybe there's like stuff happening behind the scenes. Maybe there's stuff that like people wouldn't want to say to my face, but like,
mhm,
is actually helpful for me and like
mhm.
performing well. So yeah, that could also be something helpful.
So in my dream app, well, I'll say in this app idea I had or whatever, this agent, I think there is a huge career, basically a personal tutor for your career thing. Because I do think it really excites me, the idea of having AI agents as personal tutors that have like a complete understanding of the knowledge base you want to acquire, have a complete understanding of your ability and can kind of like really help you get to like where you want to go. And I think it'd be cool to have one for your career, like a little career agent that like followed you around and was like, hey, John, you want to learn XYZ? Here are some, exercises to learn XYZ, or I don't know, like here are some opportunities to learn XYZ, or John, you could be doing this better. I don't know. Like, I think that would be kind of interesting, although maybe potentially annoying. Thanks so much for tuning into Overcommitted. If you like what you hear, please do follow, subscribe, or do whatever it is you like to do on your podcast app of your choice. Check us out on Blue Sky and share with your friends. Until next week. Bye-bye.